Hello, I'm Sarah Wilcox, Deputy Director at Scholars at Risk. Welcome to Free to Think 2020, Scholars at Risk's virtual conference marking the release of our annual Free to Think Award report. The conference includes 5 geographically organized panels discussing academic freedom issues in China and Hong Kong, India, Yemen, Turkey, and Eastern Europe. It also includes a special session marking the close of SAR's 20th anniversary year, including the release of the report and the presentation of SAR's Courage to Think Award. I thank everyone in the audience for joining us for this session and invite you to visit the conference page for the schedule and links to other sessions. I also invite audience members to use the comment function in Vimeo to share your questions, but please try to be brief to make the questions easier for panelists to respond to. If you have any privacy concerns, you can also comment anonymously. Audience members may also use the like function in Vimeo to support a question, which will raise the question to the top of the queue. This panel will focus on the state of paralysis now stifling scholars, students, and all beneficiaries of higher education across Turkey and its diaspora. Thousands of Turkey's professors, researchers, and students have been dismissed from their academic posts, detained without charge, prosecuted without evidence, and denied the right to travel in their pursuit of academic freedom. In this discussion, we will explore the ways in which we, and by we I mean all of us in the audience, in the various seats we sit across governments, universities, NGOs, and members of the press, how we may respond to Turkey's attacks, the attacks on the higher education community across Turkey and its diaspora. Today, we want to ask the question, what now? What is in store for Turkey's universities? What's in store for its staff and its students? And what can we as a global network do to help reverse the damage done? For this discussion, I'm delighted to be joined by 2 esteemed experts from Turkey, Dr. Lulufer Kurukmez and Dr. Neil Mutluer, who have both witnessed, documented, and denounced the range of abuses brought upon Turkey's academic community. It's my honor to welcome them both to the stage here. Dr. Lulufer Kurukmez is a researcher with the Human Rights Foundation of Turkey. Before joining the foundation, she was an assistant professor at Ege University in Izmir, where she also obtained her PhD. She, along with over 2,000 other academics, was dismissed by an emergency decree after signing the now famous peace petition. As an expert on migration issues in Turkey, she has taught and researched on intersectionality of migratory movements, gender, and discrimination. She was the research coordinator of a report on academic purges in Turkey, and she's currently researching human rights advocacy movements in Turkey. We are grateful to Lulufer and her colleagues at the Human Rights Foundation of Turkey for contributing to the Free to Think report, the chapter on Turkey. Joining Lulufer on stage is Neil Mutluer. Neil is the Einstein Foundation Senior Scholar in the Diversity and Social Conflict Department at the Humboldt University of Berlin, where she was an interim professor of public law and gender studies in 2018. Neil has lectured university and high school level courses on human rights, and she's headed the sociology department at Nishantasi University. She has been recognized by several academic fellowships and is an active member of various advocacy organizations. Neil has published extensively in the areas of diversity, nationalism, migration, memory studies, and Turkish politics. Neil holds a PhD in gender studies from the Central European University, formerly based in Budapest. Welcome to you both, and thank you very much for being here. You each will have about 5 to 10 minutes for your remarks before we open up to questions from the audience. So if I may, I'll start with Lulufer and turn the stage to you.
Thank you, Sarah. First, I would like to thank SAR for organizing such a valuable event, and also for the entire support they give for the academics at risk in Turkey and around the world. I should start with the devastating effects of the government's oppressive practices on the academic sphere in Turkey. Universities have never had the full autonomy and academic freedom in Turkey, yet close surveillance, control, repression over universities and academia reached an unprecedented level with the declaration of the state of emergency in 2016. In this vein, the case of academics for peace is a threshold. We will not be party to this crime was the title of the petition released on the 11th January 2016 via two press conferences in Istanbul and Ankara. The crime referred in the petition was the gross human rights violation, including the right to life, right to health, as well as the enforced disappearances, torture, excessive use of force, and infringement of the constitution and international treaties by Turkish security forces conducted in Kurdish cities of Turkey, which are also reported by international human rights bodies. The peace petition, was not only denouncing the abuses, but also making a call to the Turkish authorities to cease the violence and resume the negotiations of a peace process with a roadmap to make it lasting. As Academics for Peace dared to speak publicly on violence, human rights violations, and state policy targeting Kurds, they were cursed and accused of treason in the next breath. President Erdogan's statements incriminated the petitioners, called them pseudo intellectuals and dark. His call demanding the punishment of the petitioners as betrayers inflamed the rage and targeting via the traditional and social media. In this period, sweeping measures taken against signatories, including imprisonment, arrest, judicial prosecution, university-based interdisciplinary investigations, and travel bans. With the declaration of the state of emergency that remained in force for 2 years in the aftermath of the coup attempt in July 2016, operational measures became even harsher for all political dissidents. During this period, state of emergency decrees appropriated the Grand National Assembly's power as its authority was de facto suspended and the country was ruled by the decrees. During these 2 years, more than 6,000 academics, including 406 academics for peace, dismissed from their posts and banned to hold any position in public sector for lifetime. Also, 15 universities closed down, fellowships of students abroad cancelled. Moreover, a number of crucial changes to the higher education law dismantled all the mechanisms of institutional mediation regarding the election of university rectors, thereby making President Erdogan the sole arbiter of university leadership. As a consequence of repressive practices of appointed rectors, self-censorship has reached an alarming level as well, as we stated in also Free to Think report. Today, I will focus on more the situation of dismissed academics, in particular Academics for Peace, and violation of rights during and aftermath of the state of emergency. First of all, although the function of state of emergency decrees are defined and limited to state of emergency period by the Constitution, and state of emergency has ended 2 years ago, all the mechanisms designed and the decisions taken during this period is still valid. The Inquiry Commission on the State of Emergency Measures was established in January 2017, and this commission has become the ultimate competent authority with the capacity to decide reinstatement of the rights. Until now, more than 120,000 applications were made, and still not all the appeals has finalized. Only 11,000, a bit more than 11,000 appeals have been accepted. The criticism of the Commission is not limited to its pace, but way of functioning, including lack of institutional independence, inability to applicants or lawyers to access to accusations and evidence, and lack of hearings, lack of transparency on the criteria for acceptance or rejection. Despite the evaluation method of the Commission, which states that the Commission is to follow decisions of judicial authorities and those applications that have non-prosecution and acquittal decisions are given priority, the Commission has disregarded the Constitutional Court decisions on Academics for Peace, which was the decision was made on July 2019, a year ago. As the Commission seems to avoid the court decision and its own evaluation methods, public authorities still criticize the verdict. Süleyman Soylu, the Minister of the Interior, named the petition as statement of the terrorist organization PKK and criticized the verdict even a year after the court's decision. The importance of his statement should be emphasized, as he is one of the highest authorities that appoints the inquiry commission members and has the power to affect members' opinion about the academics for peace cases and all cases actually. To make it short, we can say that dismissed academics find themselves in a Kafkaesque gallery in search for justice through national and international legal mechanisms. I just want to talk about a bit more our research findings that we conducted 2 years ago. I'm referring to 11 dismissed academics for peace, and now working for the Human Rights Foundation of Turkey. We conducted the research among the dismissed academics, both academics for peace and the academics dismissed because of the other reasons, let's say. Our findings suggest that dismissal by an emergency decree is much more than a job loss and loss of profession, or not limited to violations of judicial process, but has expanded to social, moral, and political exclusion. Dismissed academics have faced various difficulties in finding a job to earn a livelihood in consequence of state practices adopted to discriminative methods such as tagging in national social security system in order to guarantee the civil debt. Dismissed academics had to hold informal, insecure, unsteady jobs with lower wages. Also, stigmatization and taken has still hampered them to transform their academic abilities and social capital for creating new income sources. As violations of human rights and practices of criminalization, stigmatization, and exclusion have caused irrevocable harms to interpersonal and social relations as well. The research findings reveal serious damage in social participation and challenges in making meaningful relationship based on trust and collectivity. The condition in which an academic can realize oneself as an academic is having the opportunity to produce, disseminate, and share knowledge, that is, having access to education and research, which are the constituent elements of the academy. While the executive decrees have prohibited work in public sector, employment in private universities has also been effectively yet illegally banned via the Council of Higher Education. Thus, dismissal from the university has taken away the condition of self-realization for the academics. And hence, for the more than 6,000 dismissed academics, a severe blow to their existence, identity, and ability to produce and disseminate knowledge. Excluding academics from the education and research undertaken in Turkish universities and from the spaces and mediums of knowledge production, dissemination, and discussion as a whole constitutes a violation of academic freedom as well. This is because, aside from severely curtailing the dismissed academics' employment opportunities, dismissal has also rescinded their right to participate freely in academic circles and participate in academic activities on the basis of academic merit and principles. According to research findings, again, the practices of oppression and intimidation have occurred both within the university and from the institutions outside the university. It was not only the academics, but also their students who experienced losses caused by academic repression. For example, as the most basic indicator was the cancellation of postgraduate thesis supervisions. Finally, we should admit that dismissed academics, for all dismissed public servants, they are not de jure deprived of, although they are not de jure deprived of citizenship and their attendant rights, yet they certainly are refused to be recognized as equal right-bearer members of the political community. Civil debt, as being deployed based on the logics of let die, aim to create rightless individuals who are not protected by neither domestic nor international law. Even the rights denied de facto, claiming rights is still possible through the collective action and demands making, which is dismissed academics for peace have been trying to do since 2016. I will limit my presentation for now, and we can, go on with the QAs. Thanks.
Thank you, Lulufer, and thank you very much for your comments. We'll pass the camera, so to speak, to Neil, and then we'll move on to the question and answer. Neil, to you. Neil, I think you need to unmute your microphone.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, sorry. So first of all, I also would like to thank the Scholar at Risk, SAR, once again to providing us a platform to raise the issues regarding the issues of Scholar at Risk in Turkey. And Lulufer wonderfully talks about the academic violations and the pressures on academia, as well as the resistances and empowerment in Turkey, based on the report of Turkey's Human Rights Foundation. And let me draw an attention to a couple of points to carry on the responding question of what now? And let's start by underlining the fact which was already mentioned by Lulufer, that the side as well as the direct effects of emergency decrees still continues. As we know, 406 academics for peace signatories and 6,081 academics were dismissed through emergency decrees based on arbitrary and unsustained accusation of making propaganda or being affiliated with a terrorist organization. And although almost all the academics for peace members were acquitted in the court, the process of giving them back their rights and jobs, which had been taken away by emergency decrees and decrees, proceeds extremely slow. The State of Emergency Commission delays reviewing the files of academics of peace on purpose. And unfortunately, we also see a simultaneous decline in the interest of local and international public to the issue too. Now many of the scholars have their passports, and in most cases they have been acquitted, as I've mentioned before, from the charges they face, and because of their reasons, they are not considered to be a risk category anymore. However, also because of the mentions that was summarized by the report by Lulufer, they are still under risk because it's not easy for any of them to find jobs, or they can find jobs with lower wages, so they are in a highly precarious situation. Therefore, international solidarity scholars and fellowships are still vital. It carries a still vital importance for academics for peace and dissident academics, and so that they can go back to, so now as they have their passports, they can travel easily and create a new future for themselves, and most importantly, carry on their knowledge production. And in addition to the academics for peace scholars, it's also, as you can imagine, it's harder for signatory students, PhD and MA students of academics for peace and dissident academics who formed a large group of, for instance, academic for peace, they formed a large group of the signatories. And when we think about the Turkey, the Turkey state and the political situation in Turkey is the biggest challenge for academia in Turkey still, and it seems that it's going to be for the near or mid future. We observe that some international organizations have to carry on their relations with the Turkish state in order to support scholars at risk from other countries. Yet it should be kept in mind that in Turkey, all universities are controlled by Higher Education Council, which is a politicized and government-controlled body. And this means that universities cannot be regarded as autonomous institutions capable of guarding their own academic freedoms. And in such an environment, it's very important for academic for peace-related organizations to carry on collaboration with international institutions and universities as well. And also in Turkey, in general, the quality of the academic research and teaching in Turkish universities has been in a downfall for the last 4 or 5 years. For instance, I think one of the live example of this is the presentation of Human Rights Foundation. I have doubts, or I think it's not a big exaggeration to say that, I mean, such a research cannot be done in any of the, for instance, public universities in Turkey anymore. So this shows the poor quality of and the freedom of the independent research. And academic freedoms have been curtailed quite extensively, and the situation is not any better yet. So almost every discipline of both positive and social sciences needs support for extramural independent research activities. In this respect, transnational support is very important, and it can include many items, like, I mean, academic collaborations, such as providing accreditations to their scholarly activities, like the summer schools. Now in Turkey, there are many academics for peace related platforms, NGOs, and there are academics for peace members who provide such courses and online classes. Or this support can be providing access to university libraries database to carry out academic research, or supporting their academic or research activities, or it can be the equipment or laboratories for academic peace scholars in positive sciences. And of course, the general goal, I mean, when we think about the climate in Turkey, for the dissident academics in Turkey, should be to establish independent extramural research institute or institutes. Yet we all know that, I mean, in order to reach that goal, an organization needs to prove itself to be an active, productive, and reliable body. In this respect, international collaborations are very significant. And many members of academics for peace-related organizations and solidarity academics have international academic qualifications. Yet, as a result of the political pressure, it's not easy for them, even possible for them to carry on their work and still leave Turkey because of so it's still like a vicious circle. So in this respect, we still need to carry on our transnational support, solidarity, and knowledge production methods. Thus, because of all the reasons, developing international institutional relations and being able to carry on academic research through research fundings are crucial. At the moment, their work is supported by, if and only if it's an NGO project, and of course it is still valuable, yet the NGO projects are very limited because of their nature. It gives limited space to academic research, like including, doctoral students or assistants, etc. So we are not talking about, we can make a research, we can pass the knowledge, but we cannot talk about the structure itself, to protect the academic structure itself. And in Turkey, in addition to authoritarianism, pandemic conditions do not
Neil, we
help the
lost you
scholars
for the last few minutes. Neil, if I may cut back, could you go back a few sentences? We lost your audio. I think Neil's having some trouble with her audio. So I'll cut through quickly to Lulufer and ask a couple questions just to start the conversation, if I may. Lulufer, the Human Rights Foundation of Turkey was founded in 1990. And I wonder, was academic freedom a concern for the foundation back in those early stages?
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Can hear you, yeah. Okay. Would you like to finish?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'd like to finish. Okay,
great.
So it's the last point. So in addition to authoritarianism, pandemic conditions do not help scholars in Turkey or elsewhere either. The online educational methods that have been applied during the pandemic itself raise many questions on the protectability of the knowledge production and the security of the scholars, particularly with respect to the copyright violations, as online lectures get recorded by university administrations without clear, indications as to how to use these recordings will be used in the future. So it's, on the one hand, it's a problem of academic scholars in Turkey, but it's, I think, a transnational problem as well. So thus, at this moment, we can say that the future of not only academia in Turkey, but elsewhere is under risk. And in this respect, transnational solidarity and developing resilient creative knowledge production activities and methods are much more important than usual. So I think these sessions will be an opportunity for us to discuss further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nil. Thank you, Lulu, for your very, very insightful comments. And I know that you've both personally lived through it academically, professionally, in all ways. So we really appreciate your insights. I was beginning to ask a question for Lulu because this brings us back a bit in time. As the Human Rights Foundation was established in 1990, I wonder how much academic freedom issues were a concern for the foundation as an element of human rights. And could there have been any warning signs that the academic community missed? Or was this an eventuality for Turkey's higher education community?
Actually, the Human Rights Foundation of Turkey, its expertise is on gross and serious human rights violations and torture, rehabilitation of the torture, and academic freedom was not actually the topic that the foundation interested in. But after our dismissal, not only the dismissed academics now work in there, but also the general dismissal. Human Rights Foundation of Turkey wanted to support us to go on our, academic practice, and also open up a safe space for the academics. And also, I should highlight that many of the dismissed academics has already had connections or partnerships and collaborations in the past. So it was not very difficult to, our transition to the working for the foundation, actually. And sorry, the second part, the alarming part. Actually, when we start to talk about the violation of academic freedoms, we generally refer to the petition. This is usually because of the time limitation or, focusing on a period. But when we look at the reports of many other reports, we can see that those alarms really shown itself starting from early 2010s. There were already violations against, especially who are working or studying Kurdish issues or related to Kurdish issues.
Thank you, Lulu, that's really insightful. And we have a few questions coming in already from the chat, and I'll turn to one of them now, which is, if you could elaborate on the role of universities in the crackdown on scholars. How were universities actually part of the crackdown? In what ways were universities, and this may be directed to Neil, how were universities an active member of the crackdown on the university space? Neil, I think you're muted. If you can unmute your...
Okay. If I understand the question correctly, there are several questions.
So the question really is how was the university complicit in what has happened to Turkey's higher education system?
First of all, let me start what we have experienced, because what we have experienced is not the first thing in the Turkish academic history. There had been purges in Turkey, especially in between coups, during coups. So, it's not the first time. What is unique in our case is, for the first time, a collective group of scholars decided to act on a singular petition, and this got this huge reaction and huge purge. So I think that the let's say not the signature, the petition itself, but its effect is the unique. And on the other hand, universities, of course, when we look at the university system, all the universities has to be, there's no independent university in Turkish system. All universities are affiliated with the Turkish higher education institution. So in this respect, it's quite a political institution. So once they feel the pressure, it was almost impossible for many institutions, but of course it could have been possible, but it was hard for them to resist to this pressure, but some resisted. For instance, in Boğaziçi we faced it, in Mimar Sinan we faced it, but many of the private universities couldn't. So that's why, I mean, these universities, university system itself inevitably become the part of the purges. So in this respect, if one day, if the system will, so it's not only the authoritarianism itself, maybe thinking about all these, having an institution which controls the academia is the main topic to discuss, and it's one of the main amendments that has to be made in the constitution. So this is how it is, if I understand the question correctly.
Yeah, and I wonder on that if there's this really difficult decision for those who have been dismissed and those who have perhaps been able to go back and work in private institutions, or do you start to infuse yourself back into the system that exists to change it from within, or do you instead try to build up a completely different realm of academic of systems like the Solidarity Academies? Is the choice, is it a binary choice? Can you choose both? Is there a blend that you are somehow working with the system and also developing new enterprises on the side? It must be a very difficult question and sort of a moral choice almost, for an ethical choice for some of the scholars.
May I go on?
Please.
Actually, this is really a difficult personal question, but again, according to our findings in research, because this is one of the questions we asked to our colleagues, if you would turn back to university, work there, or what would you like to do? And this is the issue that even they think that, and let's say that we think that, most of us think that even if we turn back to the university, even we are, our rights reinstated, we are almost sure that we will go through again discrimination, mobbing and pressures again in university. Not because of our political background or that we were the petitioners, etc. But now the university itself in Turkey is under high surveillance and and the pressure. You can't you will have real difficulties to work or make a research or give class in such particular topics, for example, LGBT issues, Kurdish issues, or freedoms, even the gender equality would be a problem. So not only us, but also our colleagues still working at the universities and the students already have started to look for alternative ways outside of the university. That is why we are observing increasing number of initiative platforms to create a safe space, relatively safe space, let's say, for the critical thinking and academic research and debate. This is, for example, organizations or associations formed just for this in such topics, or NGOs themselves already created spaces for academic discussions. No, we don't expect from the NGOs usually to create academic spaces, but they have already started. So I don't think that we will have this chance to do freely academic practice in a near time, but still it is valuable to be there and try to focus, try to transform it. And I should say that some of my colleagues, many of the colleagues actually, are still there and surviving and trying to establish or enhance the critical thinking and research still, and it's very valuable.
Neil, would you like to elaborate on that point?
Yeah, I agree many of the points of Lülüfer. Just one thing, I mean, it has never ever been easy to teach in Turkey. There has always been red lines. So you have to develop tactics to transfer what you really want to teach. And but it used to be, and there are periods where there's a huge pressure, and there are, let's say, much more liberal periods, or let's say free periods. And I think we passed the freedom train long ago, not because, I mean, and it's also, when we think about the Turkey collectively, now we are not, even the system itself changed. We are talking about this presidential system without separation of power, without rule of law. So under such circumstances, even the idea of resisting within the academia seems to be an unpromising job. But still, I try to keep my idealism. But this means that what I want to underline is, I think we need to go beyond only thinking about the academia, but to think about all the institutions, interrelated institutions, and the idea of protecting the freedom of these institutions, the democratic application, the transparency. So, so I think it is highly interrelated. So in this respect, I totally agree that it's still very valuable to be in the academia. But if we go back, I mean, with this environment, without any rule of law, it's not promising for today. That's what I see. But the grassroots are very lively, and knowledge is still being produced. That's for sure.
And I would say, I think one of the hallmarks of the experience of most academics from Turkey in the last 4 or 5 years is that there is the sense of solidarity, that it's a unique community across the diaspora, whether scholars from Turkey are in Germany, throughout Europe and elsewhere, and those still in Turkey. That sense of solidarity being unique, I wonder if there are elements that can teach other academies in crisis, whether it's from Yemen or parts of Eastern Europe, that can be sort of brought to share as an example. How does that solidarity get built? How do you build up this sense of community, particularly when people are so spread across huge swaths of Europe and elsewhere? And what sort of tactics are they? Human rights tactics? Are they just sort of general, person-to-person tactics? What can be shared for other communities under threat and other higher education diasporas around the world?
I should say that all these tactics, that person to person, or to watching the violations, etc., were used in this process. But the main thing is that actually it is the insistence to see the violation and to intervene the violation, and it's to seek the possible solutions of those violations, and the first two parts, seeing the violation and to intervene, it is I may say that successfully has been done so far. But reinstatement or the rehabilitation of the environment and the violation is not that easy. So in this way, in this point, actually, the solidarity academies and other initiatives among the academics are very how can I say that, empowering, really. And it helped many of the dismissed academics to survive, both materially and to survive personally and emotionally, because it is very huge traumatic experience to be cut off your profession and to have a setback to realize yourself, actually. And that is, I think we still have problems for sure. Nothing is perfect. We should work on it. We should realize the problems, such as the trying to constitute the solidarity in a neoliberal authoritative environment, both national and international, let's say. So we have to see them, but still, but so far we have done a good job so far, I guess.
Neil, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I also think that we have done a good job. But of course, it's also with because of the solidarity of our international and local friends as well. So this is also, which means that we come back to the community as well. So in this respect, there should always be transnational platforms for knowledge production. So I totally agree. But I don't want to say that to teach, because I can imagine that in Yemen or elsewhere there are other dynamics. So just thinking about these dynamics collectively and creating responses depending on the local, characteristics or local sensitivities is very important. So, but in this respect, we should definitely do some collaborative transnational knowledge production or solidarity platforms. I totally agree with this. And on the other hand, I think I won't be modest, but I see that also in the European universities. I mean, or let's say in the universities in the West, I see that the issues like diversity are more like a checklist items. They just, if you're a Turk, if you're a Muslim, if you're a gay, so you're just included there. Not really for the critical thinking to develop a critical thinking, but because of your identity, which is important to give space to the disadvantaged ones. Yet, as long as you carry on your superior, let's say, white male-dominated gaze, it won't change anything to knowledge production system. So in this respect, maybe that's why I say maybe our existence transnationally may also push some buttons. So may change the future of the critical thinking as well, because especially in a world with the world of Trump, but by the way, congratulations, it seems that you get rid of him. But of course, still in a world of this oppressive, authoritarian environment, I think we lost what we have learned in Western academia. I mean, we forget how it used to be practiced. So in this respect, I think we really go back to understand to go back and to rethink what we understand from diversity, post-colonial thinking, and how we practice it. Because in Turkey, I think Academics for Peace emerged because many of us realized that we really wanted to make a change in the society, not only in our careers. And I think this was the real reason that we make it. And it was the moment that we felt it. So that's, I think.
Yeah, I do think the activism, the sort of innate activism among the scholars from Turkey is clear, no matter what academic field you occupy. I have a question, because we are, Scholars at Risk is a network of universities that welcome and promote the hosting of scholars around the world. There's a question always of integration, that scholars are expected to integrate into the universities and the societies that they've been welcomed into as a host community. And Neil, I know you've mentioned in other discussions that it really must be a two-way conversation, a two-way process, where you invite someone in, they integrate, but yes, you must also learn to adapt to the guest and learn from the guest and give to the guest in a way that you're not just simply hosting them. I'd like to just talk about that for a minute to explore how host universities and host communities can be more of build that two-way street, so to speak, so that it's not simply asking of the guest to adapt, but also for the host to adapt to the guest and to make that a two-way conversation, a two-way sort of an adaptation on both sides, really.
Can I start, Nilüfer, this time?
Yeah, for sure.
Can I?
Yeah.
I think the question is, I mean, it's just the question. I mean, how open are you to change? That's the question. Because, I mean, you expect the other to, because integration is really a one-way street. And this means that you just become like us. But what about what happened when you encounter with someone? You also have the chance, the possibility, and luxury of learning from the other. So are you open to this? So this is the main question. And depending on, or do you feel the need to learn it? But it seems that I think we are in this need because, I mean, the world is in a crisis. So, and I'm not only talking about the crisis of the climate crisis, economic crisis, crisis of health, crisis in education, the knowledge production, else everywhere. So this is the point where I think we started to think about intersectionally and started to hear what others say. But is it not? I think it's not easy to get also out of the comfort zones. So that's why I think it's also a matter of willingness, apart from, of course, creating the real strategies. But the other thing is, I'm not sure also how who are the decision makers. So also, in order to change the system, okay, willingness is one thing, but if you really want to change it, you also have to put the people, the open, much more open-minded, flexible people with such mentalities to the decision-making process. That's what I feel, and it takes time. That's I think what I can say.
And considering, and we have a few more minutes left, I just wanted to sort of bring it back to how networks like SAR can promote this conversation even further. It's now 4 or 5 years into an extended crisis, and now we're calling it paralysis. And I think when we come to that stage of paralysis, we've heard the statistics, we've heard the egregious numbers of scholars who've been pushed out. We hear of the numbers that have been affected, students and scholars, and they sort of become numbers that you get used to. And over the years, it becomes, well, that's just continuing on. There's not much we can do. So as a network here, what are the major touch points that we can continue to keep the conversation going? Is it within the academy? Is it leaning on the international community? Of course, there are different nodes that we can be approaching, but from your perspectives within the human rights communities, within the academic community, what as a network can Scholars at Risk do to really keep the conversation going and keep this at the forefront of everyone's minds?
What I want to really emphasize at that point that it is very crucial to be recognized as still academics working in Turkey. Okay, we are dismissed from our post, but and still working in Turkey and trying to practice academic work in different spaces. Sometimes in the Solidarity Academy, sometimes like Human Rights foundations, or many other places in various forms actually. And this is very important to be recognized. That we should think about that, about these recognition ways, forms. Recognition is not only to move to another place, but also have to say to, for example, giving an affiliation, visiting, for example, or opening up the libraries. This is very important. We are cut off from the libraries. We don't have any access to libraries. Thanks to Exile Consortium, a few of the academics have this access now, but many of us still don't. And also, it is very important, for example, to talk about finding ways for the crediting the courses we give, for example. Accreditation, let's say, because among the Solidarity academics or in other spaces, we are really giving lots of courses still, many of the courses, and if we have to accredit it with another university outside of Turkey. It is a huge progress, and it will on the one hand will motivate us more, and also motivate the students who are taking these courses, and it is also will turn into a kind of international pressure on the government as well, because there is a recognition there, and international recognition is really still very important. And this is the first thing that I just think right now.
Well, Lilifer, thank you very much for that, and to Neil as well. You've both been incredible observers and promoters of the work that needs to be done. Really appreciate your time. I'm sorry we couldn't have more time, but I know that these conversations will have to continue. We will keep them going within SAR. So thank you very much, both of you. And for now, I'd like to turn it to, and thank the audience for your questions as well. Please stay tuned for a brief call to action related to our panel discussion.
Hi, my name is Serena Rosenthal. I am a Senior Program Officer with Scholars at Risk. At SAR, we work closely with scholars who have faced grave threats in their home country or territory and can no longer safely continue their academic work. Alongside the SAR network of universities and partners, my colleagues and I strive to help scholars continue their research and teaching in safety through temporary visits at network member institutions. These visits allow scholars to build new academic networks, expand their teaching expertise, continue publishing their research, and plan for their future. These visits also allow member universities to connect their campuses to inspiring scholars from across the globe. To date, the network has created more than 1,400 placements for threatened scholars. Despite the uncertainties of this past year, we saw how the network came together to make sure that scholars could continue to share their expertise and experience at universities across our network. Some campuses offered in-person placements where scholars travel to and work at the institution for a defined period of time. Others offered remote fellowships and affiliations where scholars remain where they are but gain a new academic affiliation, access to research tools, and research collaborations with the host campus. We need your help to offer these opportunities to more scholars. Despite all our success together, scholars continue to face threats to their lives and their careers, whether for the content of their work, their identities, the political situation in their country, their activism, and more. Please consider hosting a scholar this year. Whether in person on your campus or via a remote affiliation, your willingness to host ensures that more scholars have the opportunity to freely continue their work. To discuss your interest in hosting, please email me at scholarsAtRisk@nyu.edu. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena, for that important plea. And thank you to everyone again in the audience. As we noted earlier, this session is part of the Scholars at Risk's virtual conference, Free to Think 2020. I invite you to visit the conference page for the schedule and links to other sessions. And a recording of the session will be available soon and posted on the SAR website. We would welcome your help in sharing the link when it's available.